Years of contact with parents and educators from all over our globe has helped me build a pretty general but comprehensive list of the characteristics that we are all hoping to foster in our children by the time they reach adulthood. Today, we're going to look at some common adult-child interactions and understand how these contribute to the person that our child will become. Imagine a scene. You come home from a busy day at work, and as soon as you open the door, your spouse declares, "Your son is so naughty." You know that your spouse is upset when offspring become exclusively yours. So let's look at this statement. What information have you received to help you understand what your son has done for your spouse to pass the judgment that he is naughty? None. Zero. Zilch. Because the label naughty tells us nothing. There could be 100 different scenarios that have brought your spouse to this conclusion, none of which you are privy to. This could be the same for any one of the labels that we hear on a day-to-day basis. She's so shy. He's so lazy. She's so stupid. He's so messy. She's so good. The list goes on, but I only have 18 minutes and a really important message to share. So what's the problem with these labels? What happens to the child who's called naughty? Mummy calls him naughty. Grandma calls him naughty. The next-door neighbor calls him naughty. So what does he become? Naughty. With all of these people already believing that he's naughty, what's the point in him even trying to be anything different? There's probably some people in the audience who can identify with this scenario, having struggled with a similar situation in your own childhood. And for those of you thinking, well, I was called naughty and I turned out okay, just stop and ask yourself, really? Are any of us really okay? Labels are like a tattoo, indelible and only removable with quite a lot of work and an awful lot of pain. So understanding this, how about we make the choice to change our autopilot language and elevate our children by avoiding judgment and labels and simply describing behavior. You know, actually communicating what it is that has made you feel upset, uncomfortable, or great. The choice is not an easy one. We have been hearing and using labels our whole life, and the choice to stop must be a conscious one. Consciously choosing language that contributes to these characteristics that we are all hoping for is like learning a new language. It takes practice, patience, dedication. It will seem alien at first. We will make mistakes. But this is for our children and ultimately our future. We must keep going. So hearing this about negative labels is one thing, but I know that some of you are probably thinking about that. She's so good that you heard a few moments ago. What's the problem with positive labels? Working in a kindergarten setting, I see children almost on a daily basis stopping in the midst of their activity to check in with the adult that they're doing okay. Teacher, look, we've all seen it. So many of our children are unable to complete even the simplest of tasks without checking in that they're doing a great job. A few weeks ago, I was able to see firsthand the perfect example of where this behavior is born. A barely 1-year-old put a ball in a hole. It was one of those eye-hand coordination Montessori puzzles. Mummy immediately got excited. She picked up her hand and shouted, "High five!" to reward the babe for her great job. Of course, the infant had no idea what was happening, so Mummy proceeded to pick up the child's hand and fulfill the high five. Why? The child had put the ball in the hole. She had already completed the task that she'd set out to do. She already had that internal confirmation of success. Why did Mummy feel the need to make such a big deal out of it? Most of us do this in the hope of confirming positive behaviors so that they will be repeated, kind of like how we train a dog. What we actually end up doing is stifling the intrinsic motivators that are within us all. We disable our children by creating a hunger and dependency on external praise and rewards. What happens? Have we ever thought about what happens when the child doesn't get the praise? Because we all know that, don't we? We know that they're not always going to get praise, yeah? Of course, we all want to celebrate our children's successes. But how about we try pure and authentic joy and celebration as opposed to mindless and manipulative praise and rewards? Working with children for more than 2 decades, I know all too well that stickers and high fives go far with 3- and 4-year-olds. The promise of a shiny sticker or a sweetie is enough to bribe any preschooler to do something for you that you want them to do. But have we actually stopped to think about what happens at 8? Do any of us know any 8-year-olds that will do something for you against his own will for the promise of a sticker? No, of course not. And let's not even start to think about what happens at 14. We need to understand that we are all born to this earth with intrinsic purpose and responsibility. The bee and the earthworm have purpose, and they understand their responsibility to this earth. And I'd like to think that we, the highly intelligent human being, does too. What we want is for our children to retain their understanding of their own purpose and responsibility. I'm going to say that again. Retain their understanding. That suggests that they are already aware of their own purpose and responsibility. But slowly, over time, that purpose becomes obscured because of our interactions with them. When we dangle the metaphorical carrot, purpose becomes clouded as we focus in on the carrot. Don't we want our children to do the right thing because it's their responsibility as a citizen of our earth, and not just because they're going to get something out of it? To do something because it elevates them to a feeling of success and fulfillment that only comes from being our true, authentic selves. So to go back to those more difficult behaviors, how do we respond when our children challenge us? How can we contribute to these characteristics that we are all hoping for when our children are behaving in a way that we find unacceptable? Can we recognize and accept that every behavior that we exhibit as a human being is a way of getting a need met? And with that recognition, can we try to understand our children? When our child challenges us, when he throws his toys or hits or screams or shouts, can we understand that our child is so overwhelmed with a big emotion at this time that he needs us now more than ever? Can we see that emotion as a big pool of water that our child is sinking into? And can we recognize that our responsibility as the loving caretaker of that child is to save him from drowning? Instead of judging, instead of reacting, how about we try to listen. I'm not talking about just listening with our ears. I'm talking about the full experience, the kind of listening that our ancestors understood thousands of years ago. For those of you seeing this traditional Chinese character for the first time, this is the character for the verb to listen. It's made up of several independent characters, namely the ear, the eye, and the heart. Every time I see this character, I'm reminded of the beautiful art of listening. Have you ever observed a child in the height of emotional distress? Have you witnessed the stages that she goes through, listening to her with your ears, eyes, and heart? At the height of distress, the child is not breathing. Any air entering the body is there purely to keep the child alive. There's limited oxygen going to the brain, and the limbic area, the emotional and survival part of the brain, is in full control. In our urgency to stop the tears and control the situation, we use a plethora of communication skills, like logic. When bedtime is disrupted by floods of tears because your daughter realizes that she's left her favorite dolly at grandma's house, what do? Most of us would just go, "Oh, sweetie, it's too late to go to grandma's now. We can get your dolly tomorrow." So many of us have tried that, yeah? Does it work? Does our child say, "Oh, okay, let's get my dolly tomorrow. Good night, Mummy"? No, of course not. Sounds ridiculous, yeah? And oh, how we love to ask questions. When our toddler doesn't want to go to kindergarten, what's the first thing that we say? "Why, sweetie? Tell me what's wrong." What answer do we get? "I don't like kindergarten. I don't want to go to kindergarten." Does that get us any closer to understanding what the problem is? No. And how about the child that comes home? He's upset because his best friend doesn't want to play with him. How about we try a dash of moralizing? Well, if you'd shared your toys, he'd probably play with you. How did that one work? Make your child feel any better? Of course not. My favorite, the teenager that comes home and says that she's so ugly. What's our first reaction? "You're so beautiful." Okay, let's take a look at that. "I'm so ugly. You're so beautiful." We're on a completely different wavelength, and the only message that we're sending is that we don't understand her and have no idea what she's feeling. And of course, when all else fails, how about we resort to a little bit of power and threat? The times that I've heard a kindergarten teacher tell a child, "If you don't stop crying, Mummy won't come to get you," is astounding. When there's no oxygen going to the brain, the child cannot make the connection from the limbic area to the higher functioning reasoning part of the brain located in the prefrontal cortex. When we observe a child who's being listened to, we see three very obvious stages. The first, the no-breath, high-pitched exasperation that leads to the rapid compression of the chest, and then the big, deep-bellied breath that lets us know that connection has been made and the thinking brain is now in action. Let's go back to that child at kindergarten who's missing Mummy. The teacher, the person gifted with the responsibility and care of this precious being, tells the child, "If you don't stop crying, Mummy won't come to get you." Let's think about what happens to that child. Either he screams louder, that's great, or he swallows hard, forces himself to stop crying, locking that emotion inside. That's the stuff that we're dealing with in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 70s. So, in every interaction that we share with our children, let us mindfully choose our communication. Let us always keep in mind those characteristics that we are all hoping for, and let us remember that when we choose respect by refusing to succumb to meaningless labels and manipulative praise and rewards, that we are modeling behavior that they too will embrace. A few years ago, when my little boy was about 6, I came home from work with one of those big, overwhelming emotions enveloping my whole being. I didn't have to say anything, but my husband knew there was something wrong. He looked scared. He started edging away, sheltering our children with a look of, "Quick, kids, let's run for cover. She's going to blow," in his eyes. My son broke away from his grasp. He looked up at his dad and said, "Daddy, Mummy's sad. She needs us." And he proceeded to curl up by my side. He looked up at me and he said, "Mummy, you're looking really sad. I don't know what's wrong, but I'm here to help you if you need. You can cry if you want." Of course I did. I wept my heart out with this wise, compassionate, and gentle being listening to me at my side. As I leave you today, I hope that you can take these words into your heart and mind. Our children are gifted to us. They are not there for us to use as a punch bag when we are feeling frustrated or when we can't control our own emotions. Every human being, no matter how small, deserves our respect. And respect is not elevated with meaningless labels or mindless and manipulative praise and rewards. The gift that we are given is for us to guide these children, not for us to control them, but just to show them a place better than we have ever known. Embrace that gift. Thank you.